Hello, my name is Grimnir from the Sjorvaldar Vikings, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about leatherwork in the Viking Age. A lot of what we know about the leatherwork is from archaeological finds, but given that leather is an organic substance like linen, it tends to break down over time. But that doesn't mean that we haven't been able to find and analyze what the finds do present to us and draw some conclusions from that. We also have access to archaeological finds of some of the tools that were used, and I'm going to show you a couple of those today and describe some of their uses and how leatherworkers, and you can see from my leatherworking shop in here, some of these tools we still use today. So thousands of years and people have still been using the exact same tools and methods for the exact same craft. Leatherworking was a very important craft. A lot of the items that were used in daily life were fashioned from leather. You have bags, you have coin purses, shoes, sheaths, belts. All of these things can be made from leather, and this is commonly what we found. A lot of the shoes, in fact most of the shoes found, I believe, are made of leather. And you can have varying styles and ornamentation on these shoes, but it was a major industry, especially in medieval York, is a huge leather industry on an industrial scale, and a lot of the products found were shoes. So how would somebody in this time actually create something made out of leather? They use several different tools available to them, and some of these things were made in such a way that they would be robust for time, and even if they broke, they could still be useful. So the first one we're going to talk about today is the awl. The awl is a single instrument used for either creating or stretching holes for stitching in leather. So typically you would have either thong, which is a thicker cord like this, or a very thin linen thread that could be run through beeswax for weatherproofing and just to keep the fibers together over time. And you would either poke the holes fresh with this, or if the holes already existed and you're trying to get a needle through, you could actually use this to stretch the holes to allow the needles to pass back and forth through each other in a smoother manner, so it saves the fingers. In modern methods, what we tend to do is do something like wear latex gloves to get a grip on the needles and pull them through. But in the Viking Age, it was common to actually have saddle stitching, which is a very common stitching style used on saddle creation even to this day. And saddle stitching is the strongest stitch that human hands can perform. Machines cannot do it, which is why handmade leather products tend to be a lot stronger and longer lasting than their machine-made counterparts. Saddle stitching is when you have a single thread and two needles at either end. And you would start off the stitch by taking your first stitching hole, running one needle through, and now you have both needles on either side of your leather piece. And now on every single subsequent stitching hole, you would pass both of them through the same hole in opposite directions and weave them through like this. So in every single stitching hole, you have a thread going in an opposite direction. And this is the strongest stitch that we do in leatherwork. So say you finished sewing your leather and you have a lot of this excess thread, you've tied it off, you can then cut off the excess with a pair of shears, medieval versions of scissors. They can just be forged by a very simple design by a blacksmith, and then snip snip. What we tend to do these days as well is we would cut off the excess thread after tying it off, and then use fire to burn off the edges, because what we tend to use is polyester thread, and this would make it stick together and less likely to come undone. What you could have done in the Viking Age, and what some people still do today with waxed linen thread, is they would back stitch. So you've gone forward and stitched a lot, now you're going backwards, back through your existing stitches, several stitching holes. You could tie it off, or you can just leave it at that, cut off the excess, and because it has gone back through these existing stitches, it will then hold itself together just through tension. And that should weather the test of time for a very good long duration. Another common thing we see throughout history, and even in the Viking Age, is the use of the round knife. This is iconically the leatherworker's knife. It's a very versatile tool, very useful with a variety of different uses. The round knife, I have a sheath I made for mine, looks like a half-moon blade, and the edge is round. So this is a round knife, and the designs vary, but In general, they have the exact same shape with minor variations. This is the leatherworker's tool. With this tool, you could easily put the edge down and make a rocking motion and cut straight lines in your leather. If you anchor it to a table or some cutting surface, you can pull the leather and do this and still draw straight cuts through your leather. But because this is all sitting on a single point, it's able to do curved cuts without a lot of jagged little lines in your leather leather hide. And so you can easily just plant this and then make your very round cuts. But also, because of the nature of this blade, I could place 2 fingers right here, hold the handle, and I could slide along the edge of my leather and take off a chunk of it so that the leather angles downwards, and this is called skiving. And all of these are still common practices that leatherworkers still do today that were done in the Viking Age and even further back in history. This is one of the most versatile leatherworking tools that is even still used to this day because it is so versatile. Common decoration styles in leatherwork include cuts, punched holes, what we call tooling, where we make depressions in damp leather, and beyond just that type of decoration, you can also paint, dye, and stain leather a variety of different colors. And also what was typically used in the Viking Age for really nice decorative leatherwork was decorative sewing, where they would just sew thread through the leather as part of the decoration. But to go back to tooling, tooling is still one of the largest and most widely used ways of decorating leather. Modern day tooling, what we do is we have these metal pieces with designed stamps on the end. And what we would do with this is that we would get a piece of leather that would typically look something like, this color, a very tan color. This is raw vegetable tan leather. And what we would do is we would get that wet, pliable, and ready to receive an indentation in the deeper layers of the leather grain. And we would then take these stamps or some sort of tool and implement and then hit it with a hammer, a maul, or something that can give it that sort of impact. And this would cause a depression in the leather that would leave a decorative design. And over time, you can actually add several stamps together and create these ornate patterns. And the Vikings did love creating very ornate works of art, decoration, and things that could show off their wealth and their ability to purchase these items. So we have cuts, punched holes, sewing, tooling, and a variety of dyeing methods to make our leather and leather products look nice. So with that, I hope you enjoyed watching this today, and don't forget to check out the Facebook page of the Sjorvaldar Vikings.